Wednesday, March 5th, 1 week before the new NFL league opens officially next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So we're at the point of the season. Our annual Saints front office going for the gold in salary cap gymnastics, trying to get us to the point of being compliant. Still trying to keep a roster together, and they've made it well known. They're trying to build a roster that's going to go compete this year for the division title. Whew, good luck with that. Stands right now, and I'm gonna throw some numbers around, kind of on average. It's hard, my capabilities, to pin it down to the penny. I'm trying to keep it to millions as close as possible. And there's always a little fluctuation when you're dealing with the cap. For instance, right now they're figuring things on the top 51. We have 61 players on our roster, so the bottom 10 are not being calculated. You take somebody out of that top 51, somebody from underneath goes up. So I'm going to give you numbers, ignoring that bottom 10, and just think of it this way. Nobody under there is making $1 million this year. It's like, I think the highest paid salary is like $960K. So you're not making a lot of movement when they come up, when you're talking about a cap saving. So I'm not extending the math to figure out what the next man up would do. But you're dealing, like I said, a total of about 45 million or so after the release of Jamaal Williams yesterday to get cap compliant. You also have three players. We've talked about this in Tano Passanel, Juwan Johnson, and of course Chase Young, whose contract's going void next Wednesday when the league opens, because all they have is voided years of dead money. The 45 million we were just talking about is largely for three players that are no longer on the roster: Michael Thomas and Jameis Winston. We're getting through the last portion because last year they were post June 1st designated cuts. We ate some of their dead money last year. We're eating the rest this year in 2025. And then, of course, also the dead money from the Marshawn Lattimore trade. Ryan Ramczyk is going to have some dead money. He's retiring after June 1st, but we don't have to deal with that till June 2nd. He's already restructured to a veteran minimum. That's the only thing that really is going to affect the cap for us as far as that's concerned. It's not a big player there, but it is going to add up after June 2nd. And of course, in the 2026, when you're talking about the dead money, because it's the whole dead money situation that we're having to do this. The actual player salaries would not be hard to deal with when you're talking about having to restructure, asking somebody to take pay cut, releases / trades, because they're pretty much affect salary cap the same way, or trying to re-sign somebody, say one of those voided contracts that you wanted to put back on the roster. You're going to start with restructures, and starting with restructure, we've said it before, said it again, Derek Carr is the guy because the most salary, the biggest cap number, the most dead money. And when we're talking about restructure right now, we mean the club option restructure, which is basically the player doesn't have any say-so if the club wants to do this. And if my understanding, this is in every NFL contract where the club basically goes, we're going to restructure you. And what that means is the player doesn't need a say-so because he doesn't get hurt by it at all. Basically, what the club is saying is we're taking all the money we owe that's owed to you in this current year in 2025. It's basically all becoming guaranteed because we're reducing your salary to veteran minimum, and everything else, we're giving you a big signing bonus check. And in the Saints case, they normally pay this out in cash. You are literally getting a big check that day of. And then the Saints are taking that big chunk of money they just signed out in a signing bonus, dividing it roughly by 5. Typically, it's mostly 4 years, the 5th year, or the last year if they choose to do it 4 or less years. Doesn't have the full portion of the others. So the majority of it's done until the last year, and the last year just kind of cleans it up. Player's fine with that. You just basically guaranteed when we restructure Carr, because he's first on the list, we are giving him his guaranteed $40 million that he wants. We're just getting it under veteran minimum. The rest, which is about 1.255, I believe, million, that'll be a salary for the year. Maynard's getting chopped up and spread out over 5 years in dead money, but he gets the check, the roughly 37 million, 38 million point whatever dollars. So it's a win-win for him for sure. And this is how the club uses to create some space. You restructure Derek Carr, that cap savings from this year from doing what I just told you they're going to do is 30.9 million, almost 31. About 75% of what we need to accomplish gets done with him. And I've said this not lately, but in past videos, going the way his contract was structured, I think that was the play all along. I think the only thing the Saints were hoping that was maybe they could negotiate out of that 40 million and do some type of, not the restructure it looks like they're going to do right now, but changing it some terms type deal, which you will see among players. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. No go. He came right out very early as soon as the season ended and went, no, I'm not taking a pay cut. No. For names, if you get 30.9 million, you only really need to restructure 4 other veterans. And there are 4 veterans that you're kind of tied to over the next couple of years. Their cap savings isn't a lot this year, but it's enough to get you where you need to be. The upside of that is they don't necessarily add a massive amount of dead money like you're picking up when you restructure Derek Carr. And they're Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, Carl Granderson, Pete Werner. And so McCoy gets you about 6.7 million in cap savings. Ruiz 6.4, Granderson 6.4, Werner 5.25. Sum total of those 5 players gets you around 49.25 million in cap savings. You're pretty much there right then and there. The dead money just next year, Carr gets another 7.7 million added to his 2026 dead money category. McCoy's about 2.2, Ruiz 1.5, Granderson 1.3, Pete Werner about 0.75 million. So their totals in dead money next year increases you 13.45 million. Over the next 3 or 4 years, you're looking at 40 to 50 million. I'm doing rounding, so this number is actually higher, but that's about the ballpark where you're going to be. None of these 5 players have any guaranteed money on their contracts after this year. One of the reasons why you're picking some of these guys are they do have some guaranteed money. And at this point, you're just like, well, crap, just soon guarantee the whole thing, restructure it, spread it out, get to cap compliance. So outside of their dead money after this year, and look, I'm not saying they're voided contracts. McCoy's got like 9 million in salary over the next couple of years. Not one penny of it's guaranteed currently. So at that point, you can walk away from the salary portion of it. You're just still dealing with what's left over on the dead money. And in the case of McCoy, Ruiz, Granderson, Werner, compared to their total situation, you haven't created that much of a headache for you. Carr overall, definitely, just because of the sheer amount of money you're talking about. Now, I will say this, when it comes to guarantee on restructuring, that's pretty much the run of the mill, I guess you should say, way to do it. I have no idea what kind of clauses and stuff are in players' contracts, and it's not without the realm of possibility. I've heard Triplet and Underhill mentioned this one time, that you could get into some of these contracts that when you get into restructures, even though it's automatic and that option is basically based into the contract, they can write other clauses in the contracts where a restructure triggers something else. Could restructure an extra year with guaranteed money on it, something like that. So while I'm saying these 5 players, they have no guaranteed money in future years, starting in 2026, the fact that you are restructuring it may trigger something that opens something like that up later. I just don't know, because I have no idea what's written in their contracts, just letting you know the possibility. To get to that point, you're basically about where you're at. But you need to talk about pay cuts. And that really comes down to two players, and I think everybody knows who they are. And it I love Cam Jordan and I love Taysom Hill. Beast mode photo back here, print back here on the wall. Got the t-shirt, everything. Love Taysom Hill. Problem is Cam Jordan's salary this year is 12.5 million. 1.5 million of it is guaranteed. Taysom is 10 million without any guarantee on it. And what you're not guaranteed is out of either one of them any idea what you're going to be able to get out of them this year in 2025 on the playing field. You're not even guaranteed Taysom Hill will make it on the field. If there weren't serious chunks of dead money associated to their contracts, normal NFL teams right now would be walking up to them and going, do you want to take a pay cut and stay, or do you want to take a chance in free agency and let them go? But since we have so much dead money we would have to eat if we tried to make that happen that way, they're going to say, cut me, because I know you can't. If you didn't have wiggle room, they know they're getting restructured. Part of the reason why I think Carr was getting restructured, because if you cut Carr, then you're definitely restructuring both of these guys. Because what's their incentive? If we cut Carr and decide to eat the whole shebang from his contract right now, they know we were just talking about 30.9 million in cap savings the Saints desperately need. Well, they're going to have to find it from these two contracts. Roughly about 19 million between the two of them. Well, there's over half of what you lose when you cut Carr, so to speak. I feel like you could at least approach these two. They deserve the respect because I'm doing something right now I don't want to do, which is ever take money out of a player's pocket. But that's about what it boils down to. But I think you could walk to them and guarantee roughly half of those two salaries, just fully guarantee their salary this year. In other words, Taysom Hill, instead of 10 million against the cap with no guarantees, 5 million against the cap, all fully guaranteed this year. We'll take the other 5 million, put it in 2026. We'll revisit this about a year from now. What's going to happen? You're not spreading any dead money out, and you're actually decreasing your cap because instead of paying him 10 million, you're paying him 5, and it's fully guaranteed. I think very similar approach maybe to Cam. That 12.5 million, of which only 1.5 million is guaranteed, we'll turn that into 6.5 fully guaranteed this year. We'll take the other 6 million and put it in 2026. Because right now, neither one of them have a contract in 2026. They both go void next year. I don't know if those exact numbers would work for either side, but I feel like doing the math, if you can get anywhere near that with them, they're important guys on this roster, even if they're not playing. But their salaries right now on the books for the Saints are dictating guys that not only have to play, but pretty much got to play 17 games and have to bring a lot while they're doing it. And if they can't, you're going to need that money to go invest in some players who can. That's just what it boils down to. That's where the Saints front office has put us in on asking players for pay cut. We've done it before, and players have done it. We'll talk about two in a second. But I think right here, if you can get that to happen, you can get 11.5 million in cap savings this year. And that's a big deal. That would be a lot. If they don't want to go for it at this point and go, no, that's probably your two designated June 1st cuts. To clear up about $21 million on June 2nd. None of that helps you in free agency. You can't use it. You still have to account that it's there until June 2nd because you designated them. But that's what's coming. Help you in future years. It's not going to do a whole lot for you this year, and they know it. That's what I said. I think if we respectfully, two veteran players who deserve it, in my opinion, sit down with them, and they have to know what the situation is. And I think both sides, if they can just meet anywhere close to halfway, you could work this out. Very similar to, I don't want to say real similar, but somewhat what happened last year, because basically Demario Davis and Tyrann Mathieu did take pay cuts, which is why I have not brought them up in taking a pay cut or restructuring either way in this conversation. I think they're both at the point where they're probably going to ride out their existing contracts, more or less. Maybe you renegotiate terms with them a little bit to give them another year next year or the possibility of another year next year, but I don't think it comes with a pay raise, and I don't think they're giving up a penny anymore. If you would restructure them, you get 10 million between the two of them, 5.5 from Davis, 4.5 from Mathieu. If you designated them post June 1st, that's basically the same numbers you would get. I think, and again, that's two veterans. Demario Davis is still playing well enough that I'm not worried about him. I just need him to get through 17 games. But his play on the field, I'm sure he would admit to what everybody would submit. He's not the guy he was 5 years ago, but he's still pretty damn good. Matthew's a little more of a question mark, but I still think he can bring in the right scheme and playing him right can bring some value to this team. I just don't know if it's going to be as a full-time starter in 17 games to get the numbers he was given the NFL 4 or 5 years ago. But the only way to improve that is you need to create the space, because it sounds like the Saints' plan is we're going to get active in free agency, and that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. You could release Mathieu, and that was floated around out there when you're talking about releases / trades. And I don't really think anybody on this list is garnering a trade opportunity, but it's the NFL. Who the hell knows? But a straight release of Mathieu, if you would do it today, it's a cap increase, but it's less than $1 million. It's $984K. At this point, when you're talking less than $1 million, like I said earlier, talking about the top 51, that's pennies you probably don't pinch at this point. DeMario's a different story, be 4.7. And again, I think they're probably pretty much going to be here through the current contracts that they have. Some spots to look at: quarterback. For the life of me, if we are restructuring Derek Carr, like 99.99% sure everybody is, we're doing, why in the hell is Ben DiNucci still on the roster? And there's only $1.03 million in savings, but at this point, if we're going with Carr as the starter, I don't need Ben DiNucci. Sorry, Ben. Haener and Rattler are both less than $1 million this year. They're almost done sequential. And the only way I would keep Ben DiNucci on the roster, if somebody picks up the phone right now and goes, "Hey, look, you stay in with Carr, we'll give you a day 3 pick for Haener, or we'll give you a couple picks for Rattler or whatever. And if you get any type of fair market on them, I think you would have to listen to that." Defensive interior, the tackles. Sanders, $2.5 million in savings. Shepard, 1.2. Ridgeway, I think it's $1 million I have written down, but it might actually be like 1.1 or something like that. Again, you're just pitching pennies when you're talking about the tens of millions we're talking about when you get down to that much. So you could grab a little savings there. And that may be worth exploring, because one thing that the Combine taught us this past weekend is this defensive line group, especially in the interior, is as deep and badass as everybody was thinking it was. And if it wouldn't be for running backs, that might be the best overall group in the draft. We have chances to get younger, better, God hoping some guys that can actually stop the run through this draft. I mean, yes, total combined there, you're still looking less than $5 million. But I'm thinking that's in play. Probably Saunders. He's the most. He's got the most money. Wide receiver, Cedric Wilson Jr., $2.4 million. I'm kind of shocked he didn't go with Jamaal Williams, but we'll wait and see what happens there. Interesting one is Rashid Shaheed, because he can save you $3.7 million. You're not going to cut him. No way. But somebody picks up the phone and calls wanting to trade if the value's good for him. And I'm looking bare minimum, 3rd round pick minimum. They start off any lower than that, I'm likely just hanging the phone up. But I really think he's worth a second. Makes that a little complicated is, if you've been paying attention to what's going on today, the wide receiver free agent market was already kind of huge, and now more names are jumping into it. And just in the last few minutes, I have Twitter up and saw where DK Metcalf is trying to push Seattle and requesting for a trade so he can be traded. That's after Tyler Lockett hitting the free agent market earlier today because Seattle's cutting him. And of course, Devontae Adams. So you probably won't have much of a market there. He's also in the last year of his deal. That may be the one thing that kind of makes him tradable because he's cheap. He's in the last year. But I think they're going to wait and see how this wide receiver market shakes out and how much money the top guys get as opposed to the middle tier of receivers. Alontae Taylor falls in a very similar conversation last year on his deal, $3.6 million in cap savings. I do not in any way, shape, or form want to trade I think the only proven playmaker we have in the secondary right now on a consistent basis. But somebody throws the right value at you, you'd have to look at it just because last year the deal, you're going to have to pay more money at some point to keep him. You get a cap savings if you trade him. And he could arguably have some value. Again, I'm wanting a day 2 pick minimum. So, but honestly, most of those guys that are on this list are going to just be out and out cuts at some point, or they're going to be back on the roster. Re-signings, and the reason why I have that up there, this is not true free agency. It's the fact that we have 3 guys on our roster with dead money who are going to be free agents in a week, and Young, Johnson, and Passanio. Young's the interesting one because of that $17.4 million, 9.088 is him. And he's only 4 years on that deal, so it's 2-point-something million dead money per year. Defensive edge in the draft. They got some good ones up top, and they've got some potential projects later on in the draft. I don't know how the draft is going to affect the free agent market this year, but edge players typically in the free agent market and the top guys get a lot of money. But guys like Khalil Mack and Josh Sweat I keep hearing mentioned as the top guys, and his name is not really coming up. So this could be an interesting one for the Saints. I don't know how it would work. I know he's going to want to get paid, even though I think we can agree whether it was still recovering from the injury he had the previous year, the way we used him, combination of a bunch of factors. He didn't have that blow up year in a contract year where you want to go out and get paid. I don't know how that shakes out for him, but once we've done the restructures and all that we're talking about, you free up a little money. If you work a contract correct with him and have to be multi-year deals, you probably have to put some guaranteed back end money after this year on it. You could conceivably bring him back and get a cap savings as long as you keep his cap hit for 2025 under that 9.08 million roughly. Be very difficult to do. Same thing for Juwan Johnson, exact same story, except he's 6.5 million. And I keep reading he's the number 1 tight end in free agency right now. The next 2 names are Mike Gesicki and Tyler Conklin. And I'm like, I don't know what the value is because that's your top 3 guys. Because I don't know if anybody wants to pay any of those 3 guys a lot of money. Sounds like Sean Payton in Denver wants to. But he would be one, again, if you don't have to get insane with the money. And his cap hit for this year is less than 6.5. You make a little bit of cap savings there. And I don't think in any way, shape, or form, when you talk about another draft position that's deep, it's tight end. I don't think there's any way you bring Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau back next year. One of them's likely to walk. If you were to rework Johnson and bring him back, then Moreau's $2.5 million roughly in cap savings comes into play, and he's probably a veteran cap casualty. So it's kind of where we're sitting right now with what the Saints are trying to do. And looks like Zach Bowen just got paid by Philly, and they're keeping him in, according to what I'm seeing now on Twitter. And that's kind of the fast pace of what's going on right now. We're in the mode of trying to move on and get rid of. We're doing cap gymnastics, trying to do all this stuff to get to the point where we can try to sign some of these guys, do this, do that, do whatever. Meanwhile, Philly found a guy, locked him down. He's done. Nobody's going to get a shot at Zach Bowen. Other teams doing similar thing. Trades going out. Chicago, after made 2 trades this morning and traded for 2 starting offensive linemen. And we're not getting involved in any of that. It's always a day late or dollar short. It I mean, we should expect the same thing again. But the Saints need to get on it. This is the way that they're going to run it. And that's best in my ability to do the math on it. It's about the only way it can work if you bring a car back to be your starter. Get it done at this point. See if you want to be a player in free agencies, you need to get involved in free agency. Yep. See, y'all been chatting away while I've been. I don't know if I was on my high horse and screaming. I kind of wanted to. I tried not to, but this still again over and over again doing the same thing. It's just I don't understand how they think this is going to make the team better in 2025. But right now, this is the starting point today when we're going to figure it out and see if they can do it. And Northern. Hello, Northern. Carl the Cat. Hey, Carl. Hopefully be seeing you this Saturday at the box. Wearing gloves? No. Find it very difficult that you haven't said it already. I'm assuming that's something I said earlier, but I'm not really sure. You may have to come back on that one. You can't cut them. Too big of a cap hit. So if you want that 45 million to go north of, definitely 60, I'd have to redo the math. You can't. They know that. It's one of the reasons why Saints players kind of know they come here, they get paid once, they get to stick around for a while the way we do things. So no, you can't cut anybody without cap savings, and none of those players have a cap savings. No, I'm not giving anybody any presents. Cam definitely does appear dumb, but again, dead money. Just had the whole conversation, Northern. And he's opposed June 1st cut if that happens, and it doesn't really help solve our current situation because you don't really get the benefit of that till June 2nd, but you cannot cut him before that. Again, because he doesn't give you cap savings. He's a cap penalty, and your cap hit goes higher. Or cap number, I should say, goes higher. Well, look, try to be truthful, but the thing is, it's. I mean, at some point, what else can you do? It's. I mean, I guess that is a truth when you have no options left. They have so few. The good news is they have. I guess if you can find any of this, is they've been chiseling away at this problem the last couple of years. It's not nearly as bad as it was even last year, the last couple of years. But you're still only making it slightly better while still trying to be competitive. And it opens up the opportunity to keep doing this in perpetuity instead of getting out of this cycle and going, once we get out of it, we're only going to do these restructure and extensions and big contracts for top players like we used to. And we'll give really nice contracts to everybody else. I'm not saying we're going to be misers with the money, but not to the point where you constantly have to keep restructure. I mean, this is what it boils down to. Some of the guys we talked about, even the ones Northerns are bringing up, these are guys we should be looking to move on from, but we can't. As it stands right now, some of the guys he's talking about, we can't. And we could next year. It would be very difficult, especially since we're bringing a car back. So you got to kind of have to ride it out. But while you're riding it out, you have to quit making bad contracts. They can, if we add this one or two guys, and we're going to have to pay them a lot of money to do it. But if we go get Devontae Adams right now, this one is scaring the crap out of me. And pay him what he wants to show up here with Carr. We'll win the division. I have a feeling, no, we won't. I doubt it. We would need way more than that to win this division because everybody else is getting better. We're just, at best, just kind of staying where we've been. But you're now got another big contract. You're going to be looking to restructure or do something with down the years. He wants to come in and play basically for a minimum, prove it, no real money on it that we have to worry about salary. Fine. I don't have a problem with it, but I doubt seriously if that's what he's going to want to do. I'd put the same similar thing on Young when you're talking about bringing him back. But I doubt seriously that's what's going to happen with Chase Young. Yeah, it's a new season in 2025, but you're still doing too much of the same old stuff you've been doing the last couple of years that haven't worked out for you. Dressing a pig up and calling it a cow doesn't make it a cow. It still makes it a pig. That's kind of the equivalent of what they're trying to do right now. Yeah. I This is where I struggle with him because I can't figure out if he's terrible because he's one of these people, and there's nothing to do with just being the GM. I'm sure you've run into him somewhere in your lifetime where they only know one way how to do something, and you can't change their mind. You can't. That's how they're going to do it. Better ways happen, doesn't matter to them. This is the way I know to do it, how it works. It can stop working, but this is the way they. So I can't tell if it's that or if he's purposely doing this because knowing I should change, because he does little elements of change, but can't fully commit to it. Going, no, fundamentally, I want to prove everybody wrong. And I really feel like he's doing this. I want to prove, again, clearly state, I feel like, my opinion, that's what he's doing. And if it takes him a decade to make a deep playoff run and get anywhere close to Super Bowl on top of the last 4 years, 14 years from now, 10 years from now, he'll basically say, see, I told you my way still works. That's what I feel is going on with him. It's not that, necessarily he's not capable of figuring it out or getting the people under him he needs to. It's a question, does he want to? I really don't think he wants to. And that makes him terrible because sooner or later, and again, just on life, not just in football, eventually the old ways get a little old and they don't work as well or work at all anymore. And it's adjust and survive at that point. And we have not been doing a very good job of doing that. Yeah, and look, there's a lot of logical out there, I think. But there's a lot of emotional. And so yeah, that kind of cross themes. And I run into that problem. I start getting a little emotional and away from the logic. And sometimes when you get away from the logic, um, yeah, things don't go the way you want to. I just feel like we're talking about Mickey again too when I say that, but kind of the same thing. I'm very worried about the 2025 season in the sense that we're kind of pushing a lot of money into, I don't know, they said, they're still targeting trying to win the division and make the playoffs. Um, it's possible they can do it. I mean, but like I said, I feel like every other team in the division has been getting better over these last couple of seasons where we've been, call it what you want, average, below average, declining, whatever. So winning the division is going to get rougher and rougher. See, I don't buy in the fallacy of a last place schedule anymore, and here's why. Because teams that have the ability to adjust real fast, they had a bad year or they got racked by injuries or whatever, um, can adjust. They have the ability, especially for one season, to kind of pull them out, which is why they could make the run in 2025. Because I look back what we did from 2005 to 2006. We kind of got that burst of, a lot of it had to do with getting that quarterback and that head coach combination correct from the bat. We had a decent roster. We were not very good in other spots. A lot of things came together, and you won a division, and you made it, all the way to the NFC Championship game. But you came back and down to reality the next 2 years. They had to finish fixing the roster, and then good things happened in '09, obviously. Um, so I don't want to say the fallacy of the last place schedule. I don't think you can depend on the last place schedule, because a lot of these other teams you're playing against, if you're not that team that's able to do that, some of them are, because you always have them in the NFL. So even 2 years ago with I don't remember where we finished to get that quote unquote easiest schedule, blah, blah, blah. And we got our ass kicked all over the place by teams we should have beat by the logic of that schedule. So you just got to be careful with stuff like that. Um, to me, if you want to be good, make yourself better um, across the board, prove your roster, prove your coaching, improve your scheme, coach your players up, go out there, play hard, and kick people's asses and win games. I think you need to lean on that philosophy more than the schedule. um, I don't know about. I'm questioning 2 years. Um, and the reason why is you can see he's lost somewhat of a step. It happens when you start getting older. Trust me. So I mean, I'm not slighting him. Plus, the injuries also start catching up with you. And he tried to barrel through them as much as he could this year. Um, so for him to have 2 years, and could be wrong, because I'm just thinking, as a player, my production's going down. I'm fighting to stay on the field because I just keep winding up with these nagging injuries, because I've been in the league, 11, 12 years now, and pushing his mid 30s, age and wear and tear catching up on him. So now we know what kind of mentality he has, and if he decides, now screw it, I can power through all that, then it becomes a question, well, how much can you bring and how much can you do at that point? But I fully believe he wants one more year, and fully in his mind right now, he wants 2 more years, but like another year of, I don't know. So I wouldn't guarantee two, but and like I said earlier, I think if you get him in the right scheme, doing the right stuff, and not wanting to rely on him to have to play 50 plays a game for 17 games, I think he's got some real value on the field. And we know he's got great value off the field. There's no doubt about that part of it. So, you know, I, I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him really finish on a flurry this year and then go, okay, now next year makes sense. Yeah, putting lipstick on a pig. Oh yeah, that was. God damn, I had a chance to drop a cliche and I missed it. Thanks, Kat. Um, I'll try. Yeah, and that's part of the problem with him. Um, which is why I that's the vibe, you know, Loomis in his statements and the way he makes them, and it's he so badly. I think he wants to tell us all, I told you so right now. I think that's a large well, you got to look past the results. Like, we're doing great things here. You just can't look at wins and losses to see them. That's the one that drives me mad. That's the one that just absolutely drives me insane when he says stuff like that. He goes, "Well, it's all about the wins and losses, Mickey. Period. In the story. There's no wild card provision in the NFL where the Roger Goodell picks up the phone and calls, "Hey, look, I know you had a 5-12 season, but we looked beyond the results, and you guys were outstanding. So we think you deserve the last." Yeah, it just doesn't happen that way. So when he says stuff like that, it's when I think his ego just overrides his mental capacity, and as I really wish I remember who put it up there, is the terrible GM. And I think that's one of the things that makes him a terrible GM. And the worse I saw, was it Endymion that had the and it probably was more than just one parade uh, over the weekend, but it was one I saw the picture, or it might have been Tux, where basically the whole float was almost the wanted Mickey Loomis posters, and it's like you're talking about his statement, his press conference. It's almost like the way he talks to the press. He's targeting all the people who, you know, did the one at Mickey Loomis posters and people like me who just, call him on his BS when he does it. And he's been doing so much of it lately. Lots of people are calling him on it. And I think his ego just can't handle it. Who do I take number one overall? Who has the number one again? I don't even remember. It's like I only care about 9. Um, the guys I so far that I like. I'm assuming you mean 9 for the Saints because actually the only 8 picks in front of me factor into, you know, you got Tatora, McMillan, you've got Genty, um, definitely Abdul Carter, all in the mix. Any of those guys falls to the Saints. I still like Mason Graham so far. We'll see what happens at his pro day, but he's one of the few top players that actually, him and Will Campbell, let's just throw him in this conversation. Um, got a little bit of dings on him at the combine, both of them because their arms are shorter than 33 inches, but also Graham um, didn't come in, and I don't know if this really means anything. Didn't come in quite as the same way he played at Michigan. He was, but that's. I don't know if that's really a concern or not, but they mentioned it. But Campbell or Graham, I would take either one of them at 9. Um, Pierce, I think you're going to be taking a long look at. Jalen Walker, long look at. Any of those guys, and that's not counting if receivers like Burton could sneak up into that conversation. The Saints have so many holes to fill, either with guys that we need to get up to starting speed or significant depth to replace some guys. Remember all the names we were talking about, restructures and the conversation, and some of those we need to move on. I'm okay with drafting one at 9, even if we've got to wait to 2026 to really see him play on the field, because odds are he's going to play a lot in 2025 anyway. If you look at especially our 2024 injury history, but according to the front office, but it's been a big problem. It's always, we'd have done better this year, but the injuries. So going along with their philosophy, we just can't get rid of the injuries, and some of these guys are going to have to play. I think you got a good mix of them at 9 to choose from. Right now, I think it's going to get a little bigger group. I'm not really talking about quarterback purposely because even before the combine last week, I just had the feeling they were going to bring Carr back on some type of restructure or totally renegotiate a contract. So I never really got interested in the quarterback mentions at all, thinking we can't pull an Atlanta, pay, big money, and then draft a quarterback in the top 10 at the same time. Makes zero freaking sense, which means it's probably what we're going to end up doing. But quarterback's one position I can't really. Sanders Award, I know they're the two guys that's up there about where they would fall. Or and I'm pretty sure Cleveland's going to probably try to take one of them. Love tight end Mayer for the Raiders. Yeah, and I saw that they may be trading him. Only thing I got going on with him, and a lot of NFL teams may also want to talk about what exactly went on that he, it was a personal issue or whatever last season that sat out. Me personally, I don't need to know verbatim what it is, but just whatever that was all about. But no, I like Mayer as a pass catcher. Only thing is having to trade for him. Now, if they out and out cut him and you want to bring him in, that's fine. But again, in the position we're in, we can't be giving up draft capital. They're going to want a pretty good pick for him. And I kind of feel like He was okay his rookie year. He didn't really play much last year because of those, that personal situation he had or whatever. He missed a lot of games. At that point, I just need to take my draft pick and see if I can get Arroyo or Taylor or, you know, whoever out of that group. Ferguson flew up everybody's board, tight end from Oregon after the combine. So, you know, they take a 7th round pick for him. Yeah. 6, probably. Start getting in our 4s and 3s. I don't know. Maybe. I schedule, I couldn't tell you. I just know we play Tampa twice, Atlanta twice, Carolina twice every year. At some point, I'll start looking at the schedule and taking a deep dive in it. But I don't really know who our opponents are right now. Our biggest opponent right now is our team in our front office. I feel like once we get through this, then we'll see who actually going to be showing up on the field and where. Again, schedule question. Don't know. I I have no idea what Goodell tells teams every year, and don't really much care because I'm not a big Roger Goodell fan under any stretch of the imagination. No, or I don't think many Saints fans are. Yeah. Oh, number 9. Okay, so I'm glad I went through the process at 9. I forgot to mention Ty Warren too because you came up with the tight ends at all. But um, if I can't, I put it to you this way: if I can't at 9 get our biggest issue that we need to deal with is stopping the run on defense, because until that happens, the rest of it is moot. Um, and Graham probably the only guy really there on the defensive side. Abdul Carter, even though he doesn't play defensive interior, I'm pretty sure he shows up. He's going to help you stop the run. So those two. After that, I'm not really sure if you want to go that route because look, regardless of what quarterback you ride with, um, over the next couple of years, you need to keep stocking that offense with weapons. Jenny, Warren, McMillan all fit the bill on that, or power up your offensive line. Thing is about Campbell, and they talked about this obnoxiously much during the combine with his 32 and 5/8 arms or whatever they are instead of 33 inches, about an inside move to guard. And they started talking about Quentin Nelson. And I'm going, you're telling me if you could guarantee me Will Campbell would at least be Quentin Nelson and go lock down a guard position for the next decade, I'm on board, honestly. Especially again, everybody in the NFL now is moving more towards this running game, stop the running game, because they're by and large, passing game has kind of come down a little bit and the running game's kind of come up and even things out. Um, I don't know about Johnson. Jade Brown has really flipped some heads. But Johnson had so much especially based off last year. I know that he just their national championship year, he just balled back there. And so, part of you is like, yeah. So I think he was injured this year, if I remember correctly. Um, I could see that because I will concede the fact at 9, you put somebody opposite of Kool-Aid. Um, and guys we're talking about maybe as good or better showing up than Kool-Aid. I don't have a problem with having, again, if you're talking about basically the next decade, that corner spot locked down. Kool-Aid has shown he plays the run pretty well too. And all these guys have all these top corners that we're talking about, like Brown and Johnson and a few other the guys on the list, all apparently played the run really, really well. You know, wouldn't necessarily if Johnson takes that spot as the top corner at 9 and they wanted to go that route. It wouldn't. I just want a stud there. I want a stud that I can keep looking at over the next few years out there on the field making plays. And both those guys, you're probably on that list too. Uh, oh God, I'd almost want them all in white, wearing nothing else than those stupid color rush uniforms. But yeah, I don't think we're getting away from color rush anytime soon, on any level. Yes, I do know that he took snaps at quarterback and running back. I've mentioned it several times when we've talked about him. So, and I don't really care which hand he throws the ball with, to be honest with you. Um, but what I like about him more than any of that stuff is the fact that he's a big dude. He's fairly athletic. He's got great hands, great contested catch guy. Get back to being a red zone target team where we actually have some legitimate, threat when you do have to throw it in the red zone. I think he would be one. Um, get seam routes and some deeper routes back in the passing game over the middle of the field besides just our receiver. So now that's kind of the rest of that's just total bonus lanyap. But no, I don't. I've said it before, say it again. Our tight ends didn't suck last year, Northern, if you want to bang that conversation out again. But you had to use two of them to get what one guy like Ty Warren can give you. And that's out of that tight end position, which is why I look, I don't know if I want to say he's a Brock Bowers because that's saying a mouthful, I think. But you give me 80, 85, 90% more Brock Bowers in the 9 spot. I'm from a tight end like that. I'm good. I'm I'm on board with that. Never. Mostly because blanking on his name. The dog. I can't think of the neighbor's dog in the backyard. No, I start talking too much back there. He just keeps barking, and that's mostly probably what you would hear. You think Fergus can be a ham at times. Yeah, the dog behind the fence on the back porch, not really a go that we'll ever have a show done from back there. So moving in on the 1 hour mark. I want to thank everybody for joining. Let me, before we sign it off, yeah, it doesn't look like anything really new coming out so far on who's getting cut, requesting trades, actual trades happening, or anything else. In fact, I know I missed a bunch of stuff getting ready for this broadcast, and I'm gonna have to go back and read. But I tried to have the high points available. Pro days are starting. Also, should clear up the draft board a little bit more about 9. But I love the spot at 9. And I'm loving 40. I think we still get some quality football players with our second round pick and possibly into the third round, depending on how the draft falls. I mean, it's a key component of what they're doing or what they need to do. But, like we just ran through, it starts with the cap gymnastics. And I just, to kind of close this out, I just would love for us to get to the point where no more salary cap gymnastics. Maybe restructure 1 or 2 guys like we used to do a couple of years ago. Wasn't this run of this much going on, or extensions, or using what a lot of NFL teams as the word cap casualty means, which is, think Denver and Russell Wilson, probably the most recent example of, we made a huge error in this deal. And instead of keep making it worse by throwing more and more money at him and extensions and all this, just going to bite the bullet, eat the contract, try to fix our roster, send him on his way, which, Pittsburgh got great use out of him last year once he got on the field, overcoming an injury. Denver rectifies the situation, goes with a rookie quarterback, and was a playoff team last year. I want to be able to have those options at our disposal. But right now we just don't. It was, and if it's not Carr, if you're going to let him walk, then instead of the other four players we talked about on those restructures, you can definitely restructuring Cam Jordan. You're definitely restructuring Taysom Hill. You're probably restructuring Alvin Kamara, who we didn't even have to talk about in this conversation, and you're almost definitely restructuring Demario Davis and Honey Badger. And that might get you similarly close to that 30.9 million of one restructure off Carr. Got to get away from doing that. Have to. Been kind of my theme last video, this video, and anytime this conversation comes up. But that's where we're at. Yeah. So real quick, Black and Gold Network at myshopify.com. The merch, the shirts. Hey, that was right. The poster back there of Beast Mode, even coffee mugs. So I want everybody to know that, because that's one of the best ways to support the channel. Besides the actual first time here, give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe, the notify. Probably won't be any planned live views until the draft. I can definitely say we're going to be going live a lot that weekend, possibly even in the week leading up to that. But I feel like there'll be some type of emergency situation where I'm going to have to jump on and everybody's going to want to talk about some crap that went on with the Saints. I feel certain of that. So make sure your notifications are hit, so when that happens, it'll pop up and we can sit down and talk about it. Enjoyed hanging out with everybody today. And until I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.